You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with Saints Raiders and the concerning game from Drew Brees. Make no mistake about it, Brees did not look great yesterday. You can see that the absence of Michael Thomas is hurting him, and the fact that he's 41 years old is getting to him. This guy just doesn't have the arm strength to chuck the ball downfield like he did when he was younger. And he doesn't have the weapons necessary to do that. Traquan Smith is a good player, but he's not great. Alvin Kamara, great pass-catching back, but running backs aren't going to run 20, 30 yards down the field and make highlight reel catches that often. I mean, the Saints should have been a lot better. Brees is the kind of quarterback who should be able to make good players look great. He's done it before. But he's 41 years old. The age is catching up to him. His arm isn't as good as it once was. He's already made plans for what he's going to do when he retires. He's going to go to NBC. And he'll probably eventually take over for Chris Collinsworth. Make no mistake about it, this was a concerning game for the Saints. Brees should have been a lot better, and he wasn't. But here's the one thing I'll say. There were some people on Twitter that were saying that Brees could be benched for Jameis Winston. Are you nuts? You're joking, right? You're not going to bench a future Hall of Famer for Jameis Winston. Think about this. Does Jameis Winston give you a better chance of winning than Drew Brees? Does Taysom Hill give you a better chance of winning than Drew Brees? As much as I like Hill, he can't be the quarterback of the future for the Saints. I've said that before. I like him as a gadget player. I don't like him as a franchise quarterback. And even then, Hill didn't get a lot of run yesterday. 2 carries for 8 yards. And he got that on 1 carry. Look, this was a bad game for the Saints. There's no way around it. They should have won and they didn't. And Brees isn't going to win his first MVP this year. I'm not kidding. Drew Brees has never won MVP. How crazy is that? And he's only made 1 All-Pro team. He's made a bunch of Pro Bowls, but only 1 All-Pro. No MVPs. That's a miss. That is a bad job by the voters to not give Brees an MVP. At least once. I mean, this guy's a surefire Hall of Famer. He's going to go in with no MVPs. Bizarre. Very, very bizarre. But even then, Brees wasn't awful in this game. He wasn't great. He wasn't the Brees of old. but he still threw for over 300 yards. For the most part, he was safe with the football. He threw an interception, and it was a stupid throw. Alright, bad decision, bad everything. But he still gave you a chance to win. The Raiders are just good. This is a good Raiders team. You're not going to bench Drew Brees. I understand that Brees is nearing the end of the line. I wouldn't be surprised if this was his last year. And the Saints are going to need to think about what they're going to do with quarterback going forward. Is it Winston? Is it Hill? Is it someone else? I don't know. But while Brees isn't the Brees of old, he's still good. He still gives you a chance to win. And at the end of the day, can you really expect more than that from a 41-year-old quarterback? I mean, let's face it, Brady hasn't looked fantastic. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. The Saints will be fine. They may not win a Super Bowl this year. They may not make much noise in the playoffs, but they're probably going to be a playoff team. You're not going to bench Drew Brees. That's ridiculous. Elsewhere for the Saints, Alvin Kamara, mentioned him earlier, played great. 13 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was also the Saints' leading receiver, 9 catches for 95 yards. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. There's no question about that. And he could have been a Jet. Supposedly, Todd Bowles wanted to take him when he was head coach of the Jets, but Mike McCagnon said no. Thanks a lot, Mike. Emmanuel Sanders being non-existent did surprise me. Only 1 catch for 18 yards. Again, it speaks to Brees' declining ability. Brees isn't the Brees of old, but look, he still gives you a chance to win. You're not going to see any crazy numbers from Saints wide receivers. Even Michael Thomas, when he comes back, I don't think is going to have a fantastic season. He'll have a good season, he's Michael Thomas, but he's not going to be fantastic. Brees has lost a step, there's no question about that. But he still gives you a good chance to win. You're not going to bench him. That's ridiculous. And when you look at the Raiders, this offense is finally putting it all together. Ever since John Gruden went back to the Raiders, they've struggled offensively. There have been rumblings that Gruden isn't 100% sold on Derek Carr. He signed Marcus Mariota to a big contract. And it just seemed like Gruden wasn't sold on Carr. Well, early on this season, Carr has been really, really good. Back-to-back games with a quarterback rating of over 100. 4 touchdowns to no interceptions. He's always been very safe with the football. His completion percentage right now is 73.5%. Now, I'd be surprised if it stayed there for the whole season, but last year, his completion percentage was 70.5%. So while it may dip, it's not going to fall off the face of the earth. This guy has talent. And he's etched in stone as the Raiders' franchise quarterback. And the Raiders have done a great job of supplying him with weapons. And it starts with Josh Jacobs, one of the best young running backs in the NFL. In fact, he may already be one of the best. If you wanted to put him on your top 10 list, I wouldn't be too upset at it. This guy's a machine. There's no way around it. He rushed for 88 yards yesterday with no touchdowns, but last week, he got his touchdowns. He had 3, along with 93 rushing yards. He's insane. John Gruden loves his bell cow backs. That is Josh Jacobs. But more than that, the Raiders have a bunch of really good pass catchers. Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Bryan Edwards is really talented. Hunter Renfrow is really talented. Henry Ruggs will have a good career. Not a great career, but a good one. This is shaping up to be a good Raiders team. Maybe not a great one. They don't have a true number 1 receiver. I'm not crazy about that. But they have the pieces to make it work. Carr, Jacobs, Waller, Edwards, and Renfrow. That's fine. I'll take that. That's good. It's not great, but it's good. John Gruden, when he got to the Raiders, tore the team to the ground. He traded Khalil Mack, he traded Amari Cooper, and he basically built the team from scratch in his image. Now, he had that right. Mark Davis empowered him to do that. And I was in full support of the plan. I had faith in Gruden. It was going to be messy, but I did think it would pay off. But it's paying off sooner than I thought it would. Gruden is not getting enough credit for what he's doing in Vegas. He's still a great football mind. Moving on now to hockey. And wow. What a weird game. Anton Khudobin had a stretch of 4 minutes in the first period where the bad shrimp that he ate before the game reached his stomach and he was feeling it. In those 4 minutes, the Lightning scored 2 power play goals and an even strength goal. Right then and there, 3-0 Lightning. And you had the sense that the Stars weren't going to be able to come back. They just don't strike you as the kind of team that can score 4 goals on Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, they didn't keel over. They had a good second period. But Vasilevsky stood on his head. The one goal he gave up in the second period was a power play goal. There's only so much that I can get on him for that. He gave up a goal to Matthias Janmark in the third period to make it 3-2 Lightning. But after that, that was it. This was a physical game. Both teams had 50 hits. It was very surprising to me that Khudobin had that stretch. Because this is a guy that has been incredibly consistent all throughout these playoffs. I was doubting him to start off with. He proved me wrong. Give him full credit. All it takes is that little stretch of time where the Stars are playing sloppily and Next thing you know, you're down 3-0. And I've said this before, this is a Stars team that is built on defense. Again, very similar to the Islanders. The Islanders aren't going to win many 4-3 games, and the Stars aren't either. Now, granted, the Islanders were in a similar situation in the Flyers series. They were down 3-0 after 1, they stormed back to tie the game at 3, but then they lost. It's the same principle for the Stars. They're not a team that can win high-scoring games. They can't afford stretches where they forget how to play hockey. They have to be on the top of their game at all times. That's what happens when you're a defensive team. You can't just flip a switch and have an offensive onslaught. If you're built on offense, yeah, you can have bad moments. And trust yourself to get out of it later in the game. But defensive teams don't have that luxury. One thing's for sure, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in Game 3. Is the Stars defense going to show up? Or is the Lightning offense going to show up? I don't know, but I know this. This is shaping up to be a really good Stanley Cup final. Moving on now to the NBA, and it is time to preview Lakers Nuggets. For the Lakers, don't overlook your opponent. In Game 1 of this series, they got out to a big lead at one point. They were up by 27. And then they ended up winning by just 12. The Nuggets made them sweat it out a little bit. It was never really in doubt that the Lakers were going to win, but they made them work. And Game 2, they're up by 16, and they're up by 8 with 3 minutes left, and they squander it. This is a Nuggets team that you always need to respect. If you take your foot off the gas, they will make you pay. Once you get out to that big lead, don't let up. It may sound cliche, but play a full 48 minutes of basketball. These two games have been a lot closer than they should have been. It's just that simple. As for the Nuggets, they really need to get their supporting cast to step up. I mean, I said this before the series started. Whatever team has their supporting cast playing better will win. That has been the Lakers. They've gotten contributions from KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Rajon Rondo, and Dwight Howard. Besides Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who do they have? Michael Porter Jr.? Okay, fine, he's good for 15 points a game. That's it. Firstly, he should be starting. I don't know why Mike Malone keeps him on the bench. This guy needs to be starting in place of either Jeremy Grant or Paul Millsap. But second up, those guys like Grant, Millsap, Gary Harris, Mason Plumlee, Monte Morris, they have to show up. As great as Murray and Jokic are, they can't do it by themselves. They need some help. You just get the sense that They're waiting until the fourth quarter and then they can flip a switch. And those two guys can go on a crazy run. It doesn't work like that. If the Nuggets don't get contributions from everyone tonight, and I mean everyone, they're going to be down 3-0. Because they are looking like the vastly inferior team. I don't look at these as Nuggets comebacks falling short. I look at these as Lakers choke jobs. I'm not saying the Nuggets don't get credit for making the Lakers sweat, but at the end of the day, if the Lakers kept their head screwed on straight for 48 minutes, the Lakers win Game 1 by 20, and they win Game 2 by double digits. It's just that simple. There was an interesting baseball story that broke yesterday concerning the New York Metropolitans. According to Andy Martino of SNY and Joel Sherman of the New York Post, when Steve Cohen finalizes his purchase of the Mets, he could bring back Sandy Alderson as an advisor. Not as a GM, just as an advisor. Look, I understand the career that Sandy Alderson has had. He did a great job with the Athletics in the late 80s. And when he came back as a GM with the Mets, he got them to a World Series. He developed a fantastic pitching staff. He made a bold trade for Yoenis Cespedes. He signed Curtis Granderson away from the Yankees. He made some good moves. But very quickly, his vision fell apart. Matt Harvey stopped being the Dark Knight. He let Daniel Murphy go to the Nationals after his postseason heroics. Jason Vargas was a complete disaster. Travis d'Arnaud fell off a cliff and then resurrected his career somewhere else. Todd Frazier was terrible and is still terrible. Todd Frazier gets so overrated because he's a fun player to watch. You know, he's a locker room leader, and he does things on the field that are kind of funny. The guy isn't good. Alright? He's just not. Not a bad fielder. But not a good player. For the Mets, he's at .232. 40 homers and 128 RBIs in 3 seasons. For the Yankees, he had .222. He's not that good. And for God's sake, I've seen that picture of him with Jeter a million times. It seemed like every game that Todd Frazier was with the Yankees, they showed that picture. Whoop-de-doo. Want me to show you the picture I have of me and my father with Bernie Williams? What about the painting that's hanging up in my house with me, my father, and Mariano Rivera? Want me to show that to you every night? I mean, come on. He also did a bad job with rebuilding the Mets. A lot of the trades that he made in selling off his pending free agents netted the Mets nothing. Drew Smith. What the hell has Drew Smith done with the Mets? Gerson Bautista, Jamie Callahan, and Steven Nogasek. Forget about it. Ryder Ryan. Guy's never played a game in the majors. Eric Handhold. It sounds like a Beatles song. I want to hold your hand. Give me strength. Jacob Rain. Nothing special. Putting together a garbage bullpen. Antonio Bastardo. Letting Justin Turner walk. He did pull off the great trade for Syndergaard. That made a ton of sense. But again, that plays into d'Arnaud leaving and becoming a really good catcher. Sandy Alderson has had more failures with the Mets than he has successes. He put together the great 2015 team. No question about that. But after that, forget about it. They lost in the wild card game at home to the Giants. Madison Bumgarner pitching a gem. What else is new? You know, I almost went to that game. I got talked out of it. I should have went. Would have been fun to root against the Mets. You know, there's nothing wrong with Cohen bringing in a guy who he trusts. He had a good relationship with Alderson. That's fine. You know, I understand wanting someone in the building that you trust. That's your right as an owner to bring in your people. But to bring in a guy who did more bad than good with the franchise, that's not a good look to me. Also, haven't the Mets done something like this before in bringing back Omar Minaya when Alderson had to step down because of health reasons? Minaya, John Ricco, and J.P. Ricciardi were running the Mets. And it was killed at the time. A, you can't have 3 people running a team. But B, you can't bring someone back to a team that he did a terrible job in running. Was Alderson as bad as Minaya? Absolutely not. But I was not impressed with him when he was here. You know, it's an advisory position. I don't know how much say he's really going to have. If Cohen wants to completely reinvent the Mets, bring in a new GM, bring in a new manager, rebuild the team from the top down, he can do a lot worse than having an experienced baseball guy in Alderson sitting next to him and giving him some advice. But I just don't think it's a good look for a guy to come back to a team that he really didn't do a good job with. It would be like Mike Milbury coming back to the Islanders, or John Idzik coming back to the Jets. I'm not saying that Alderson was as bad as those guys, but it's the same principle. One great year does not a successful tenure make. Alderson had more misses than hits. I can tell you that. I do want to talk about a pretty notable hockey death. And this guy wasn't a household name or anything, but he had a really good career. And that is Bob Nevin, who passed away yesterday at the age of 82. Nevin was a very underrated player, and his death has been criminally underrated. Because, like I said, he was a really good player. He had a couple cups of coffee with the Maple Leafs in the late 50s, but his rookie season was 60-61. When given the chance, Nevin showed that he really belonged. He finished with 21 goals and 37 assists for 58 points. He was a plus 26. Yet somehow, he didn't win the Calder Trophy. That went to his teammate, Dave Keon. All due respect to Keon. Great player, Hockey Hall of Famer. Did not have a better rookie year than Nevin. Nevin had more points. He had a higher plus minus. Nevin was the better player. The year after that, Nevin continued his solid play. His production dipped a little bit, but he was still good. 45 points, plus 20. And the Leafs went on to win the Stanley Cup. They beat the Blackhawks in 6 games. Nevin played every game for the Maple Leafs. He led the NHL in playoff games played that year. And he had 6 points in 12 games. You have a point every other game in the playoffs? I'll take that. And that line that he was on with Red Kelly and Frank Mahovlich, that was perfect for him. You have a young player coming up, learning the ropes, and he's playing with a veteran in Kelly and a guy in Mahovlich who, while he was still young, had already established himself as a premier player in the NHL. That was a great job of coaching by Punch Imlach to put those 3 guys together. The year after that, Nevin's production dipped again. Only 33 points. He was a plus 4. But the Maple Leafs repeated as Stanley Cup champions as they beat the Red Wings in 5 games. In 10 playoff games that year, Nevin had 3 goals. The year after that, the Maple Leafs pulled off a pretty big trade. The Maple Leafs decided that they needed a little bit of help if they were going to three-peat as Stanley Cup champions. Which they did do. They just didn't do it with Nevin. As he was traded along with Dick Duff, Rod Seiling, Arnie Brown, original Islander actually, and Bill Collins for Andy Bathgate and Don McKenney. Bathgate and McKenney really helped the Maple Leafs that year. They did three-peat as Stanley Cup champions. They beat the Red Wings in 7 games. They were both point-a-game players for the Maple Leafs in the regular season. And in the playoffs, they were big contributors. McKenney was a point-a-game player. Bathgate played in every game. And he had 9 points to go along with 25 penalty minutes. Nevin firmly established himself as one of the better players on the Rangers in the mid to late 60s. In his first full year there, 64-65, he was named captain, and he'd hold that title until 1971 when Vic Hadfield took over. For whatever it's worth, Nevin replaced Camille Henry as captain. In Nevin's first few years with the Rangers, they struggled. They had traded 2 really good players in Bathgate and McKenney. They were going with a youth movement. And it showed. But then with the help of a guy like Nevin, but namely Rod Gilbert, Jean Rattel, Phil Goyette, and Eddie Giacomin, the Rangers did find themselves back in the playoffs. But with Nevin, they didn't do much in the playoffs. Actually, it's kind of funny. The year after Nevin left the Rangers, 71-72, the Rangers made the Stanley Cup final. They just lost to the Bruins in 6 games. Ironically, Nevin had his best playoff year with the Rangers his last year with the team. 70-71, he had 8 points in 13 games. The Rangers took the Blackhawks to a Game 7. Whoever won that game would face the Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final, but the Blackhawks won 4-2. Like I said, that was Nevin's last year with the Rangers. He was traded to the North Stars for future considerations. That would eventually turn into Bobby Rousseau, who actually had a few good years with the Rangers. Nevin had a couple years with the North Stars, didn't do much. Then he went to the Kings and had a few really good seasons there. He found the fountain of youth at the age of 35. His 3 years with the Kings, he had 50 points each season. He led the NHL in games played his first and second seasons there. Like I said, he did his best Ponce de Leon impression. The Kings made the playoffs each year Nevin was there, but they only won a round his last year. And then they lost to the Bruins in 7 games. Nevin would finish his career with the Oilers in the WHA. Like I said, really underrated player. Couple fun facts for you. The first one, I did not know he wore contact lenses, becoming one of the first NHL players to wear contact lenses. Thank you, Wikipedia. And he shares a birthday with me. He was born on March 18th. He was just born 59 years before me. But Bob Nevin was a really good player. Like I said, criminally underrated. He died yesterday at the age of 82. May he rest in peace. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that the best situation for a knuckleball pitcher is to pitch in a stadium with the lights out.